Welcome to, this is an important video. If you're a Paiste Cymbal fan like myself, this is the Paiste NAMM, the National Association of Musical Instrument Manufacturers. I don't know what the hell it stands for. Musical Instrument Minstrel Factory people. Paiste is introduced. Now this is a half, hey Paiste fans, fellow Paiste fans, but also two sort of what the hell's going on at Paiste? Paiste introduced at NAMM 17-inch 2002 sound edge hats. Steve Jordan and the like, this whole rage of larger hats, woo, right? 17-inch sound edge hats, check them out, go on their site. Paiste sound files are really, really good. They are very honest, check them out. They also came out with what they call big beat, okay? Big beat cymbals, which are essentially 2002s, but with the Paiste Modern Essentials hammering on it. I mean, ultimately, that's what they are, okay? Listen to the samples, they're beautiful. They're treating them sort of in the same giant beat kind of way, like they just have one model in each size. They have an 18, a 19, a 20, a 21, 22, and a 24. Personally, I think the 22, if you look at the videos, type in Paiste NAMM, N-A-M-M, on YouTube, and you'll see a few folks made videos of the Paiste booth. Listen to those big beats. To me, especially, the 22 sounds marvelous. And then what else did they do? Oh, the 26-inch giant beat. Okay, multi, right? A 26. And then they did a few other things too. But I'm just going to focus on the, oh wait, in the big beats they also have 15-inch and 16-inch hats. Okay, medium hats. But I'm going to say this. Now, I had Paiste's ear. I had actually Eric Paiste's ear, meaning that I actually got a chance for about 2 weeks to talk to him at length on the phone. He was calling, I think, from Switzerland or Germany, I'm not sure. But he was kind enough, I made my Paiste 2007, I'm sorry, my Paiste 7, you know, the Paiste PST 7 line, which is a great B8 alloy, more affordable cymbal. Those are great cymbals. They almost, in general, to me, sound like 2002 shorts, okay? Like there's just not as much sustain sort of across the board, but you have that initial shh, they're beautiful. And I do think they possibly could cannibalize their upper lines. But anyway, that's a different story. But he and I had sort of a bromance, kind of, on the phone. We talk about this. I gave him my ideas about this. Ideas that I had been sending via email to the, you know, the Paiste site. Contact Paiste. You know, these long diatribes I'd send in over the years. I'd call Paiste in Brea, California for the past, honest to God, 22 years. Talk Andrew Shreve's ear off. I'm sure he's kind of like, click. But I gave him all my ideas, and I said that in other videos about having... my ideas were, and still are, to have a 23-inch ride in many of the upper models, right? Not just, you have them in the giant beats and all the signatures, you know, the signature traditionals, and the signature dark energies, and the signatures. I think a 23 would be great, because as I've always espoused, especially with rides and hi-hats, where you keep the discrete, where you keep time, in hi-hats and rides, 1 inch makes all the difference. Even a ½ inch does. Just ask her. But it really does, okay? If you have if you're playing a 20-inch for a long time, and you go to a 22, not so much with the, sometimes with the smaller cymbals like 17, 18, but in the bigger, like a 20 to a 22, or especially a 22 to a 24, going from a 22 to a 24 is like driving, you know, a Toyota Corolla for a long time, and then getting behind the wheel of like a bus. You know, it's drastically different. So I always recommended that they make 23s in their lines, at least the professional lines. And of course they used to, right? By the way, of course, Zildjian came up with the 23-inch sweet ride. Now I'd given Paiste, I'd begged them to make a 23 years before Zildjian beat them to the punch in the 23 sweet ride. But in all fairness to Paiste, obviously, they did used to make 23s. They had 23 symphonic cymbals. I used to have a pair of 602 23s. But they also, right, if you look at old Paiste catalogs, you'll see they offered a 23. Right in the, like right out of the catalog, I think late 60s, early 70s, you get like a 23, you know, heavy, 23 medium ride, 23 medium. I don't know about a 23 thin, possibly. Remember back in those days, way back in the day, they said thin, medium, and heavy. Then they brought in the thin crash and then the medium ride. And anyway, so I think that would be great if Paiste would offer 23s in at least those upper lines. Even I've also said to even ½ inch increments, definitely ½ inch increments I think on hats. But anyway, but I will say I find this very strange Paiste came out with the 17-inch 2002 sound edge hat, right? So obviously they're in tune to the larger hi-hat sizes. But if you've noticed, you can only even get 15-inch hats in the 2002s with the sound edge. You can't get 15-inch medium or heavy hats anymore. They're only offered in 14. And if you look at all the signature lines like the Energy, the Dark Energy, and the traditionals and stuff, they're only 14s there. Okay, not even 13s, but there's only 14s pretty much in all those signatures. You'll find 15s in both 602s, the classics and the modern essentials. So I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't know why they still don't offer at least 15s, because 15 now is kind of the new 14 to a lot of people. It is. And 16s are sort of the new 15, right? And 17s apparently are kind of the new 16s. I don't know what the hell 18s would be. But really, I don't know why in the top lines they didn't offer across-the-board 16-inch hats. And also why they got rid of, over the past year, at least year or two, the 15-inch hat sizes. But why they didn't, while bringing back, while introducing the big beats with the 16-inch hi-hat size, why they didn't introduce 16s in both 602s and the signatures, in the 2002s, at least in the medium size, or the sound edge too, and in the giant beat, right? I don't know why they didn't. And that's another thing too. I've been getting. I told Eric a bunch of times. I said, you know, you really should make a pair of 15-inch giant beat hats. You know, original sound edge hats. I mean, you really should make a 15-inch pair of sound edge giant beat hats. You know, the original sound edge, which were 602 B20 Ally, were thinner, delicate cymbals. And if you've ever seen an original pair, or a pair of 14 or 15-inch 602 sound edge hats, they're very delicate, very pretty cymbals. Incidentally, back in the day, there used to be more ripples. Up until maybe the early mid-70s, they used to have, I'd see on some 15s, I'd see up to 54 ripples. Now the standard is, if I'm not mistaken, on 15-inch sound edges, you'll see 34 ripples, 34 or 36 ripples. And they seem to be a little more pronounced. But I actually do think the older ones with the more ripples that weren't quite as pronounced sounded better. Not just because that's what they used to make, we can't get it anymore, therefore it sounds better, but there was more contact with the top cymbal. Obviously more ripples means more contact, right? They just sounded crisper, right? Anyway, Eric Paiste actually did say to me, he said, Terry, you know, he liked my Paiste 7 video, what I started to say. So we got to talking, and I had mentioned to him I didn't want to endorse anybody for my channel. I'm not saying that's why he called, but he was grateful that I made the Paiste 7 video. But he asked, I said, when I told him about the giant beat sound edge hats, he said, you know, we'll make you a pair. I said, well, you know, what do you want for them? He's like, I'll send them to you. He said he was just going to give them to me, which was terrific. Unfortunately, our bromance came to an abrupt end. I'm not sure what happened, but apparently we broke up. But anyway, so if you're a Paiste endorser, look around. If he did, in fact, at some point make that 15-inch pair of sound edge giant beat hats, get your hands on them, because I assure you they sound terrific. Anyway, so my advice to Paiste, it's great you made those cymbals, you know, those new lines, or the big beat and the 26-inch giant beat. But I do highly recommend 23-inch size cymbals. There's my telephone. It's a telemarketer because that's all you hear these days on your landline. 23-inch cymbal size, for the love of God. Okay, it's terrific. Great idea. The big sizes are huge with the kids these days. They are. The hats. I mean, you made a pair of 17-inch 2002 hats. I don't know why you got rid of the 15s and the other lines. And why you don't offer, again, 16s across the board. Also, too, one final thing. The giant beat line, the reissue giant beat line, which is now already 11 years old, across the board, I think that is arguably the best sounding B8 alloy line they've ever made. If you were to, arguably, okay? I don't know why they just don't make it a full blast series. Okay? Again, you know, have 16, 17, 18, 19-inch, 20-inch, 21s, you know, maybe 13-inch hats, definitely, again, 15-inch sound edge. Because it's very much its own line. And technically, it's not necessarily, it's not 100% true to the original, you know, 1967 to early 70s giant beats. It's not. They were a little different, okay? The reissue giant beats are really essentially 2002 blanks. Like they're shaped. If you look at them, they're 2002s that don't have the 2002 lathing. They have that very fine giant beat lathing. The same lathing pretty much they use on the modern essential 602s that they used to use on the Sound Creation. that they use on the sound edge in the 602. You know, that really fine lathing that they also used on the 3000 reflectors and the 2000 sound reflections, and now on the signature precision. But that's slightly different because they're burnt. I mean, they're brilliant, right? These, of course, the giant beats weren't brilliant, nor the modern essentials or whatever. But make the giant beat its own line, man. I'm telling you, they're terrific cymbals. Offer a 22 right off, offer a 21. But also, too, you know, the thing is, I was really surprised, personally, that they came out with the giant beat thin. Because the giant beats generally are pretty thin. Not so much, you wouldn't really notice so much in the 24. But in the 18, definitely. If you go to the Paiste site, put on an 18-inch multi, not a thin, but a multi, okay, in the sound room. You can get the file and compare the 18-inch giant beat multi to the 2002 thin crash. You can hear they're the same weight. Actually, the multi might even be a little lighter if you listen to it. So what I'm saying is, Paiste, I did recommend this to Eric Paiste too, and in emails. They should make a slightly heavier giant beat than the multi model. They should. Maybe 10 or 12% heavier, especially in the 18s and the 20s, and if they do in fact expand the line. So the multi would sort of be like the medium weight in sort of the crash department, right? More or less. Do you know what I'm saying? And then there would be the heavier, and then the thin, I mean, to me, the thin giant beat models they make now would be considered paper thin, in my opinion, in other lines. Anyway, so that's my Paiste advice. Again, I no longer have Eric Paiste's ear, but what can you do? Anyway, check out those new Paiste cymbals. Go to their website. Again, those sound files are terrific. They really are. And anyway, so keep watching. More videos on the way. I'm going to the studio in a week. Okay, I'm going to go in and record some stuff. I got some pretty rockin' tunes. Again, if you want to buy my CD, you can. I sell these babies on eBay. My seller name is Kingish. I'll sign the CD in this thing for you. Again, number 3, In My Heart, was on Chicago radio, WXRT. I also have some, well, I'll tell that later. Anyway, thanks for watching. More videos on the way.